All right, guys, welcome back to the English Sooner. It's your boy JP. We got Trav back at it again. Trav, how you feeling today?
I'm good, man. Good. Played a little golf, did a little work, had some meetings, whatnot. So had to wear the bucket hat, had to wear the OU
Yeah,
shirt. Got a
yeah,
couple boomer Sooners on the golf course, ready to hate on Texas a little bit.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Hey, we running a little bit late today. Ain't no problem though. We still gonna get it. Make sure if you're just in here, go ahead and retweet it out on Twitter. Tell your friends to go ahead and join us. Last week we had a very good reception, especially live. Had a lot of people asking questions in the comments. Um, Again, we want to continue that. Comment in the comment section throughout the whole thing. I will say save your questions till the end though, because we will have a Q&A time. So sometimes it's hard just kind of scroll back to the beginning and try to find out what everybody asked. So save those to the end. But again, come one, come all. We're ready to rock at it. Trav, what was your opinion of the Kansas State Oklahoma game this past weekend?
Man, anytime you can get out of there with a win, you could not go 0-3. I think we touched on it last week. You just cannot leave there 0-3 over these last 3 years. I think we played well. I think it started to get that uneasy first, second quarter. It felt a lot like it felt just sitting in the stadium in the West Virginia game. Everybody kind of looking around, going, "Man, I'm kind of over this whole not scoring." Kansas State has the ball for so long. We can't get them off the field on third down. We can't get them off the field on fourth down. That's frustrating. You feel like it's just eating away at you. Third quarter comes out, and we look like a national title contending team. I mean, when we start that third quarter like that, I was like, I don't know what. I actually talked to Pat. I was like, what did Lincoln say at halftime? I was like, and he said, man, nothing really needed to be said. Like opportunities were there. We just kind of were were learning to play with each other at the right time. We're finding our groove at the right time. And he goes, if you look back on, a lot of Lincoln's teams and a lot of, since I've been here, and this is Pat talking, said since I've been here, it's just how we do. We get better as the year goes on. We're always a heck of a lot better in November than we are early in the year, and we're building towards that. So I was excited about it. I think Spencer played a fantastic game.
Yeah,
Um, I think when people start to talk about his interception, I mean, he went 22 for 25. I'm a bit concerned with his downfield inaccuracy so far. He's oddly enough one of the worst quarterbacks downfield on 20 plus yard throws, but he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country on 20 and under throws. And I think that part of that is just the offensive line isn't giving him the time to really develop those deep routes that are open. Um, but with that, I mean, 22 for 25 is ridiculous.
yeah,
On the road against a Kansas State team that's got a pretty good defense to it. They've got some players on that defensive side. So I was thrilled with that third quarter. And then they started doing all the gimmicky. I mean, obviously going forward on fourth down, that's straight out of Pulaski Academy over there in Arkansas.
yeah,
But the onside kicks, the one, man, what a swing! What a swing! It was such a well executed
yeah.
onside kick too, but he just double tapped it. Sorry,
You know,
bro, against the
I don't
rules.
know if he would have gotten to it though if he didn't double tap it.
No, well, of course. I mean, we don't know how a ball bounces. I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of the whole point. But
yeah,
but man, it just looked so just the doom started to creep in. It felt like a bad trip. You're like,
mm,
or a bad dream, a nightmare, and just a little bit of doubt starts to creep in, and that stuff spreads, man. It spreads like wildfire. So
yeah,
once you saw it, you heard the stadium going insane. The kicker was all going nuts.
yep,
And I just thought, oh, here comes another weird one in Manhattan where, we got a lead and we squander it away. So that's what I kind of figured was going on. And then, I know on TV it was like when they slowed it down, everybody was like, well, you kicked it twice. And then all the Kansas State fans are whining about, oh, you can't review it. It's against the rules to review it. No, it's not. They talked about the rule afterwards. They're allowed to review something if they didn't review it in the first place. They didn't review whether he recovered it at the appropriate spot.
yeah,
They were reviewing illegal touching. It's a completely different review. But what I liked about it was Lincoln's confidence, not only knowing that it was double touching, but if you go back and you look at them announcing the call, they have both the coaches. They always do the split screen whenever they do a review to get the reactions of the coaches of the big call. Well, Kleiman is watching the ref, awaiting the call, not surrounded by anybody, whatever. Lincoln is in the middle of his offense calling plays. He's talking to the offense. He's giving direction, all this. He's not even listening to what the ruling was going to be because he was so confident in that. And he was going to use that extra time as just an extra timeout. Okay, they're giving us more time. Let's now prepare better. You know what I mean? So, and even Spencer's interception, that's an interception that's not bad. You don't want him to throw an interception. Sure, they could have taken something underneath and maybe kicked a field goal or something like that. But throwing an interception where you're inside the 10-yard line of an opponent, it's not that bad. If we would have put Turk out there and he'd have, kicked a little drop kick, a little pooch over into the corner and would have gone out of the end zone, everybody would have been like, oh man, look at this. Our defense is stout. And they would have loved it.
Yeah.
Spencer throws a pick and it's all of a sudden off of the head, So I did think it's bad, but when Caleb came in and fumbled the snap and cost us 7 points, it's like, man, all those people that were chanting, we want Caleb. I'm sure they don't even watch the away games, but it was but all in all, man, we showed flashes again. We showed the capability of being a stout defense and a strong offense and everything like that. I love Kennedy Brooks getting some big carries. I love Jeremiah Hall getting in the end zone a couple times. I still think we struggle with our wide receiver identity a little bit, but
you see that.
That's something that's got to get worked out.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think about it?
Absolutely, man. I came away obviously thinking that, we had a really good offensive game. Obviously, some people would still say it's not our standard or to our level or whatever else, but I think you got to be satisfied with 37 points, especially with what we've seen from them. I think they seem more in sync than they have been in a while. And I know we talked about the running game, and it looked a lot better. I know they went to the zone blocking scheme, didn't really do the counters as much, or the GT counters hardly at all. It just seemed like it was kind of a hat on a hat, and simpler for the guys to just go block who was in front of them. And even then, they still missed some, but it was still there for the most part. And so that's what you want to see. Defensively, I wasn't enthralled, especially towards the end. I think they did a pretty good job for the most part. Defensive line, for whatever reason, just didn't seem like they could get pressure. And a lot of people said Kansas State's offensive line, that was the best game they played all year. And that's another point I want to hit on. Guys, you got to realize we are, besides maybe Texas, and even for Texas, we are like literally in the entire year, we are that team's like biggest game, no matter who we're playing, really, especially in our conference. And so, they're going to put all the stuff. That's why you see Chris Kleiman doing what he's doing, literally changing their personnel packages almost every play, literally almost every play against us. Like, because they know, like, this is, if we can be OU, right? It's
we run the conference. Texas may run the wallets, the checkbook, whatnot, but we still run the conference. It's got to come through us. And Texas obviously is a big game for a lot of these schools. Not a lot of great interconference rival, but it's a situation where people like to beat Texas because Texas is a whole heck of a lot of fun to make fun of, and they walk around, puff their chest out, and talk. They got the big wallets, they got all these buyouts they're paying, they got the brand, they got all this. So it's fun to beat them. But if you asked every single Big 12 coach, what game would you want to win this year if you could pick a game against a conference opponent, every single one of them is picking OU.
Yeah.
Every single one. And I know TCU and Texas has their rivalry and things like that, but if you ask Gary Patterson who he wants to beat the most, dude, come on. It's OU.
It's six. It's six straight, and that's the thing too. Like, I think it does kind of get annoying because it seems like we always get everybody's best shot. Like you look at Skylar Thompson's stats versus almost any other team in his career, and they're average, right?
Dude,
But
we make that guy. If he should only put in his game film, like to his pro days and whatnot, just be like, just replay my OU games.
I mean, even Saturday, like he's on almost one leg, and that's why it was even more frustrating that we didn't get to him more because he wasn't as mobile, and that goes to my other point about the defense is like, I didn't love what the linebackers did, man. Like, how many busted coverages do we had on Deuce Vaughn where we just lose them? Like we don't. How do we not know where Deuce Vaughn is? Right? Like,
Yeah, well, and that's what I was specifically talking to Pat about that. I'm gonna pull up my text message real quick because I
yeah,
was asking him about that because a lot of times he was stuck on him, and I was I said because I was picking on him about the personal foul that he got for body slamming Deuce, which shouldn't have been a personal foul. I don't think the play was blown dead, but
yeah,
when Deuce is that small, if you
yeah,
pick him up and body slam, it's going to be very obvious. So I said, how much of a bitch is it chasing around Deuce all game? He goes, man, gave me like 8 different routes. He said, but if they would have threw a good pass on that one, I would have cribbed it. I said, I was like, man, I'm just glad he's in our rear view. He said, yeah, I started bad, missing 2 tackles on him, but then after that, we were good. We just can't afford to let him get by. I mean, we had a ton of missed tackles in that game. There's no doubt, but Deuce Vaughn gives a lot of people trouble. I mean, he's top 5 in rushing in the conference. I think he's number 4 or something like that. On not a ton of carries, they use him out of the backfield in the passing game so much. So it's not even like most of the damage he does is just running the ball. So. And also, I think one of the things that worried me about the defense is they just wanted to keep everything in front of them, which I get.
yeah,
But there were times where it was like 3rd and 8, and the safeties and linebackers were standing on like the line to gain
yeah,
and just waiting for somebody to run into them. I'm like, man, you're lucky nobody's got elite speed, or they're just going the other way. You're
yeah,
lucky Lockett's not still there. He's just going the other way, going, all right, well, if you want to wait 8 yards off of me, then I'm going to get around. So that was kind of frustrating. But keep in mind, we are missing a lot of defensive contributors,
yeah,
whether the starters or not. So when you look at Delarian Turner-Yell being out, he's been
yeah,
playing well. You look at obviously Stutzman being out. You look at Jalen Redmond being out. You look at
yeah,
Woody Washington being out. You start looking at these, and it's like, man, maybe Grinch was onto something rotating all these guys in because you're getting a lot of guys that are having to see the field in crucial situations that normally wouldn't.
yeah,
But it's good because they've actually seen some playing time. You're not getting, you know, Kelvin Gilliam out there on just his first play of the
yeah.
year, on a road game against Kansas State.
That's fair.
You're not getting that. You're not getting Jordan Kelly. You're not getting those guys in just for the first time on the road, and you're like, all right, good luck. You don't have any backup because the other
Yeah,
guys are hurt. So I hope you know how to play at this position. Like,
yeah,
no, they've been getting the run. So, but hopefully this was a situation, and I could go Jekyll and Hyde on this. I could go, well, I'm glad they're saving these guys, making sure they're good for Texas because that's going to be our biggest test. But at the same time, man, we keep losing to Kansas State. So like, if they're ready to go, I'm like, ooh, we probably could have used them. But the game wasn't as close as the final
that's
score
complicated. Yeah, not at all.
indicated. So, people are saying, oh, 31-37, they barely got out of that. A late kickoff touchdown. I mean, it is what it is. I
Yeah,
wasn't sweating it after that 3rd quarter. So
yeah. No, I agree completely. I think that we just have to continue to grow and get better. But yeah, the game was. I mean, game is pretty much in control. I mean, it's 34-17. Then you get, obviously they drive down the field. They had that one big play. I don't know who the cornerback was on that, but Skyler hit that guy for what
yeah,
75 or something like that, and then they score on that play. We haven't given up hardly explosive plays like that hardly all year, except for the one in the Nebraska game that DJ Graham was on, but then he made up for it with that incredible
yeah,
line. So
definitely.
we haven't given up a lot of explosive plays this year, especially in the past game, which is good, good sign. But again, then you get the boneheaded mistake by Tyrese Robinson that gives I forgot. Is it what's their guy's name? Is Malik who? What do you remember his last name? From
Oh,
State.
yeah, I forget the name.
He,
Number 8.
yeah, he took one back. He took one back the week
Yeah,
before.
he's a player, man. He's
He's
a
a good
player,
player.
man.
We know that, and we want to kick to him. And if it was
He
just a
kind of
regular,
reminds me of Cordero Patterson. Like, he's a bigger guy too. It's not just.
see
It's
that.
not a situation where it's like you've got just a little Dante Hall type guy back there, just
Yeah,
small Deshaun Jackson, just speedster. Yeah, like no, this guy's like he's a big dude. Knowles, yeah, appreciate it, Spray.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, Knowles was his name. Yeah, I mean he took it back, and you kick it out of the end zone. You're probably looking at a final score of 34 to whatever what was it
24.
40,
Yeah,
24, yeah, 34-24. Again, I
but
mean,
Tyrese had a good game.
24,
I
excuse me.
mean, our offensive line looked pretty good,
No, no,
all things considered.
absolutely.
But I would I think you got to start Wanye.
I
Um, he's he's just different, man. He's a grown man, and he's
yeah,
understands his role well. So I like him at that left tackle spot. I'm not sure what Anton Harrison's got going on in his head. I mean,
he's got the talent.
he just seems so disinterested,
Yeah,
which is odd. I know it's not. This isn't a space where we want to bash any players or anything. I'm just
no,
calling it like I see it. Like I know. I mean, I hope everything's all right with him. Like it's kind of weird to see like a mentality like that because he was in high school. He was murdering dudes on. I mean, he was.
yeah,
I mean, he was just a whole different mentality. So
yeah. You
I
just
don't
never,
know.
man. I mean, you have pressure get to you. I mean, I don't know if you remember Tyrese Lott or not, but that's
Oh yeah,
you remember Tyrese Lott from a couple years ago from Arbor.
yeah, yeah.
He's my cousin. He's my third cousin.
Oh,
Um,
word.
so
Nice.
yeah. So we grew up together. But I mean, honestly, it's kind of the same thing happened to him. He had some stuff going on back in Ardmore. Just
Hmm.
had some family stuff going on, and I think just the mentality change and switch that Grinch brought. He was already kind of iffy in his sophomore year, and he was getting some playing time. He was on the two deep, but he just for whatever reason just couldn't push through it. And he's a good dude, good kid. I mean, he's still Ardmore. He's working at Michelin now. He's fine. But it just it's kind of that man. Like you have a talent like that, you don't want to necessarily see it wasted for sure. So hopefully Anton gets it together, but you don't want to see a mentality switch, like you said.
Well, and also it's a situation where it's like you don't want to you don't want this opportunity to pass. I mean, once the next class gets on campus, like who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows how quickly you can be recruited over or a transfer comes in. I mean, and it can drastically affect. It's like, okay, cool, you're a starter, let's go.
yeah,
Well, if you ain't got it, we aren't going to hold your hand. Beanbo's certainly not going to hold your hand. Say, all right, well, I know you haven't been performing well, and there's something between your ears. I don't know what's going on, but I guess we'll continue to start you next year and just hope everything changes. Like,
yeah,
like not around Oklahoma, you can't do that.
absolutely, absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I do. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say, if you ain't got nothing else on Kansas State, I think it's time for what everybody came for. It's officially Texas Hate Week. Red River
Absolutely.
shootout. I know I heard somebody earlier watching a video said they're glad they don't call it the Red River rivalry anymore because it's hard to say that. I don't mind it either way.
Yeah.
But
Well, and that's why like Josh Pate is always like
yeah,
Red River Shootout. It's not going to be called any other name. Like,
yeah,
and then he's actually going to be there. Game day, Josh Pate, they're all going to be down there, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
yeah. It's definitely gonna be. I mean, I wish I could get down there. I was trying to. I'm hosting a state championship cross country meet this
Oh
Saturday.
yeah,
So, it was a big money maker for us, so I got to be there for it,
yeah,
unfortunately. But I'm going to be watching it from on my phone while I'm handing out trophies, probably. Like,
yeah. Right.
you know. But no, man, it's a good time to just really analyze the game, and obviously, as much as we will hate on Texas and talk trash about them, man. I think you really gotta, if we're gonna be real, you really gotta like where they're at right now. as I'm sure that their fan base does. Now they haven't done everything great defensively. I will say I think their defense is, still left a lot to be desired. But obviously they can score points, and I think they have the best running back in the nation in Bijan Robinson.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a big Travion Henderson guy personally.
are you? He's
I
nice.
mean, he's real nice.
He's nice.
He's if they gave him the ball more, if he got the carries that
Being
Robinson
good.
got,
Yeah,
he'd be leading the country in rushing. I mean, he's
he's a beast.
special.
Hey,
So
yeah,
it's one of those where, I mean, it's a good problem to have, right? If you're
yeah,
arguably one of the best players in the country, everybody's got their opinion. He's great. I'll tell you what, I watched that TCU game, and oddly enough, like I had this weird, just calm, like, and people are asking me about it at the restaurants or whatever, like, man, how you feel about this week? I'm like, I'm comfortable. Like, I feel good about it. I watched the TCU game, and TCU did everything they could to give that game away to Texas. I
yeah,
mean, they're running, double reverses, and they drop the ball in the backfield when they're in field goal range, basically.
yeah,
And so Texas, that wipes points off the board. I think it was a fumble again on either special teams or down near the goal line where Texas gets the ball like the 8 of TCU. That's more points. Like, and then there was another turnover, I think, like their third turnover, and that's bringing it back to Spencer at K State. Spencer's interception. No, I don't want Spencer throwing interceptions, but Spencer throwing an interception to where if you put the opposition on their own 8-yard line is not the same as, man, you put the opposition on our 8-yard line,
yeah,
or you completely wiped much needed points in a close game off the board.
yeah,
Those kind of things. Like, and I think that's where it's like, man, I know Casey Thompson, he's got his Oklahoma ties, and there've been a lot of great stories this week about him. Brandon Drum and Parker with 247 had a great story about how I guess he was enrolled in Oklahoma for a very short amount of time, which is interesting. He's transferring from Texas, but ended up back at Texas. Is what it is. He's going to be the starter for you. I just think, I mean, historically, no matter who they got, if they got, Sam or whoever at quarterback, we just always play well on the defensive line against
yeah.
Texas. It just, I don't know why it happens like this, but we always just rack up the sack totals and everything like that. And I do think that forcing Casey to throw, I don't think that I don't think he's as polished as he came across in like Tech stuff like that. He's thrown to a lot of wide open guys at Tech. And even at TCU, he had some
Four throws.
interesting decisions and poor throws. So I know a lot of people will say, "Well, Spencer's made bad decisions." Of course. I'm still taking Spencer Rattler over Casey Thompson, and it's not particularly close. Every NFL scout will too. So there's something to be said for that. So it's I just watching that TCU game, Texas just looked like they're like they wouldn't have won had TCU just not made bonehead decisions. So in this, if we can play a clean game, I'll tell you what, we've got to cut down on the penalties. It's one thing under Lincoln Riley that's been interesting. Lincoln Riley's teams have always been heavily penalized. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, always. I mean, since he got his head coaching job. I mean, we've ranked, I think, in the hundreds some years of like penalty yards accepted against us. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's wild to me. We can't make those mental errors this week, especially limited possessions. I mean, against Kansas State, we had limited possessions, but we scored on like most of, if not all of them, in the first half. Outside of the was that interception? I think it might have been. But anyways, we were scoring at an incredible clip per possession. I think the first like 5 or 6 possessions,
yeah,
like we were on pace to match our Western Carolina points per possession number, which obviously we won that game 76-0. So you can't ask the offense to do much more than score at that clip. They just got to get the ball back more. And that comes down to getting off the field on third down, getting off the field on fourth down, things like that. But I don't know. Like I said, I've got this weird calm just after watching Texas play. against TCU, I'm like, yeah, I'm really confident. Especially we talked about Lincoln being vanilla. You know, there's one game that he's definitely not vanilla in, and it's against Texas. I mean, that's what he saves up for.
Yeah.
Especially this year. Got a new coach going against him. The last thing, A, from a recruiting standpoint, but B, just from future going forward, Lincoln's legacy, that kind of thing. You don't want a first year coach to come in and beat you in the Red River shootout. Like you don't want it to happen. You're now the elder statesman in that rivalry. Got a new guy coming into it. You need to make sure that he doesn't, step up and change the tide, if you will.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree, man. I think everything you said you were spot on, and especially the point of you gotta make Casey throw, and as much as good as Casey's been, um, I don't think he's who Texas fans will say he is. Again, not to say he's not good. Obviously, he's mobile. He's more athletic than Ellinger was. Believe it or not, you actually watch his throwing motion; they're pretty similar as far as their throwing motion. I'm not sure if he has a rocket arm or whip of an arm per se. He can make the throws. I'm not saying he can't, but again, it's kind of in that mode of, we clearly know that we have the better quarterback. Um, and,
Yeah.
and it's gonna if it comes down to that, which quarterback can will which team to a win. I'll take Spencer Rattler all day for sure. However, we cannot for sure let Beyond get going at all. And that was kind of a question I had just for us to talk about. What are the number of yards you think that the Sooners need to hold Bijan Robinson under on Saturday to get a W? I would say they need to hold him at least under 115, 120. I think he's probably going to get 100 verbatim just off the number of carries he's probably going to get, because I think Sark knows
Yeah,
how.
if they give him 35 carries,
Yeah.
but they gave him 35 carries against TCU, and you got to wonder. I mean, he's still a young guy, I know, but like 35 carries wears on you. So I was all about them running him as much as they wanted last week, and I don't think that's going to be their full blown offensive philosophy going forward. But it's also a situation where if you look at the rushing totals, like the team totals in the like since Lincoln's been coach, he's 4 for 4 for out rushing Texas. Like
Yeah.
we outrush Texas every single year in this game. And obviously we've had Kyler and Jalen that added an element to that game.
Yeah.
But I mean, last year we didn't. We still outran them. And I think it's interesting because our rush defense has actually been extremely stout. I mean, we're top 10 in yards per. I think we're number 7 in the whole country in rushing yards allowed per game. And that's and what's interesting is teams are trying to do that. Teams are trying to run the ball, just drain clock, take those possessions, things like that.
Yeah.
And teams aren't airing it out against us by any means, so they're running the ball. But I think I saw we're giving up like 2.58 yards per carry or something, which is good for 8th in the country. So we're 8th in the country in yards per carry given up. And then we're 7th in the country in yards per game given up. So and then Bijan, he played against Arkansas. They held him, in check. And obviously Arkansas, they've got a good run defense, we think. I'm not sure. I know they played Georgia, but Georgia couldn't run the ball on Clemson. We're not sure if Clemson's any good. They don't seem to be. But Boston College, gave them a nail biter the other day.
Yeah.
And it's like, are we really going to? And I'm not saying Robinson ain't a great back. He's a great back.
Yeah.
But are we really going to say, okay, you lit up Texas Tech and Rice, and he played well against TCU, but TCU was making, like I said, I watched that game. TCU was missing a bunch of tackles, and he was making them miss some tackles as well.
Yeah, he did.
But we're going to be the best run defense they've seen. And like I said, I know Arkansas had to play Georgia, but they're also ranked like 84th in the country in rush defense right now or something like that. Like one game shouldn't take you. Like if you're that good, playing one opponent. I don't care how good Georgia is at rushing the ball. Like it shouldn't drop you into the 80s.
Yeah.
If you've been great everywhere else. And we've been, like I said, we've been great against the run. So, I mean, we've given up, I think the last running back that ran for over 100 yards was Brees Hall, ran for 100 yards, I think, a couple Iowa State games ago. And then I think Sam Ellinger did it too from the quarterback position. But that was kind of, we were playing prevent, we were trying not to let the game go to overtime. Game went to overtime, and he just chipped away, just dropped back, everybody vacates, and then he'd run. So I don't count that as typical rush defense. So
yeah, no, you're right. And I think that at the end of the day, that's all we have to do. We got to control the running game, make tackles. I've seen people in the chat talking about we can't do chicken wing tackles this week. Not against
no arm tackles. We don't want to end up on my guys, Mr. Go 30 or whatever, the coach that does all the film room stuff. He is so good.
See the NFL one today?
I gotta watch it.
Oh my, you gotta,
dude. He's so good. Last one I saw was the Ole Miss one where he talks about the sleeves and he talks about the OBGYN.
Oh my gosh.
But my new goal for OU this season is not to end up on one of those. If we don't do that, then we'll be in good shape. But with the OU online, if they see an order come through from his name, they need to block it. They need to not accept his payment. They need to do something because we're about to be clowned if you see him order anything,
bro.
But that's the thing. It's like we can't arm tackle, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say we hold Robinson under 90. I think we hold him under 90 yards.
Y'all heard it here first.
I just don't think. I think that's going to be the game plan, and I think if we get some pieces back, and we get the safeties coming down to help in the run, I just don't. I think they're amping it up a little bit too much with the run game. Yeah. We saw it against Arkansas.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
We're a lot closer to Arkansas than we are to Rice.
Yeah, and we're
a lot closer to Texas, or we're a lot closer to Arkansas than we are with defensively to any other team they've played. Yeah. So it's odd to think that, Robinson's rushed for 100 yards in 6 of his last 7 games. Rushing yards.
I don't know about all purpose. They're gonna use them. Yeah. They're gonna use them in multiple ways. We gotta watch.
They'll use them, but specifically rushing yards. I mean, that's gonna be what they're going to want to do. But I think it's a situation where, like I said, 6 out of the last 7 games, but then that's all fine and dandy until those other 6 games were terrible, like against terrible teams. And even if they weren't terrible teams, their run defenses certainly weren't anything to write home about. And also, what is he, 5th in the country in carries? Something like that? He's like top 5, top 6 in the country in carries.
Yeah.
I wonder what his somebody in the chat, look up what his yards per carry rank is. I don't know if his yards per carry rank is as impressive as his yardage rank, simply just because he gets so many carries. Yeah. And that's what Chuba Hubbard did. Chuba Hubbard had a ridiculous amount of carries.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard had a ridiculous amount of carries at OSU his junior year. And everybody was like, oh, man, he's leading the country in rushing. But then he was like, I think he was like on like a top 10 all-time list or something like that of carries in one season. I'm like, well, yeah, that's why I always used to take Matt Stafford when he was with the Lions in fantasy, when he had one specific offensive coordinator, because he broke the single season record in pass attempts.
Yep.
And then the next season, he broke his record in pass attempts. And until fantasy football knocks you for incompletions, I'm going to pick the guy that's thrown it 50 times a game, as opposed to the guy that's thrown it 24 times a game. So, of course, the guy that's running the ball 35 times a game is going to be the guy that racks up numbers.
Yep.
As simple as that. I mean, if him and Roshan were getting getting a Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray type workload, then those numbers wouldn't be nearly as gaudy.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah. And
they're making him the bell cow, and they're going to run straight into the ground.
that takes me to something that I think is going to be fun for us to talk about. I want each of us, and you guys can do it in the chat too amongst each other. If you want to tell your favorite delusional Texas fan story, y'all go ahead and put it in the chat right now. And if you're a Texas fan in the chat, I'm sorry. I've met a couple of y'all that are good people and will actually rationally think about things, but I've met too many that are just nuts. So
I know, and you put them all over my timeline. I'm like, man, why are you arguing with these fools?
I need to stop. It just, it's just something in me. I'm like, I gotta talk to the foolishness, Trav. I don't know what it is, but hey, look, I want you to think of the most delusional interaction you've had with a Texas fan this year. I got mine.
Go ahead.
In my head. You think of yours. So on Twitter, there's a dude that he's probably the loudest Texas fan, at least that most of the people in my circle know. I'm not gonna name his name, but he said at some point in like June or July, Texas had just gotten Keelan Robinson from Alabama, and at that point, for whatever reason, also Trav, there's your answer right there. He is 24th at 6.2 yards per carry, but he's
6.2. Yeah, 6.21 is great, but yeah, exactly. Third in carries.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's why I struggle with a lot of these, like Kennedy Brooks walking first down, like for his career. And it's a situation, and this year's obviously different offensive line situation. We're not doing the GT counter as much. He's not getting those holes, but he's still, you can see the balance. You can see, I tweeted out during the game, I was like, he just makes things happen. He just, he finally, slips through the hole a little bit, keeps his balance. But yeah, third in carries, but 24th in yards per carry. Show me somebody that's, I'd rather see somebody that's top 5 in yards per carry.
Yeah.
Like what do you do? I mean, and obviously 6.21 or whatever yards per carry is stout. That's fantastic. Yeah. But at the same time, it's a bit of fool's gold when it comes to, oh man, he's got all these 100-yard games. Well, yeah, give him the ball 100 times, he's going to rush for 100 yards.
Yeah.
It's a cumulative stat. That's why I get annoyed with, again, passing statistics or anything like that. That's like, oh man, this guy, was, I forget. It was one of the first games of the NFL season, but it was like they threw the ball like, it might have been Dak. It was his first game back from injury, and he threw the ball like 60 times or like 58 times or something like that. And they're like, man, he put up all these yards. I'm like, he threw the ball almost 60 times. Of course. What, he's just gonna throw it into the ground 6 times? Like, of course.
Yeah, don't get me started on an NFL kick. I'll be out here talking about Baker all night because I can't.
All right, go with your delusion.
So to finish that story, he said after Keelan Robinson transferred to Texas, that Texas has the best running back room in the nation, verbatim.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what? Like, and especially at that point in time, that was nuts to say. Like, and there was no art. It was not arguable. It was no. Texas has the best running back room in the nation. And I'm like, look, I would say arguably Ohio State, Georgia, and at that point, I would have felt like OU because at that point we had Eric Gray, Kennedy Brooks, Marcus Major, Mikey was still on the team at that point, and then
Seth McGowan still on the team.
Trey Bradford, like,
yeah.
I'm just like, yo, that's just not true. Like, and I told him, I said, Roshan, for everything y'all think he's overrated from what y'all say about him. Like, I'm not saying he's bad, but he's a very average running back. Okay, and again, that's what's proven. Now, Bijan may be a top 5 running back, arguably the best running back in the nation. I have no problem saying that myself, but that does not make a running back room. One running back does not make a room at all. And so it's just funny to me, and it brought it up because, just thinking about what Texas did to Arkansas, rushing the ball, which was hardly anything, versus what Georgia did to Arkansas running the ball. And I was like, well, but I thought you said Texas had the best running back room in the nation. Georgia kind of messed that one up for you. But nah, that was just the audacity to say unequivocally, which is what a lot of Texas fans do. That they're
Uh,
the best in
a lot of them,
everything.
a lot of them speak in absolutes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and
exactly.
that's part of the problem with Twitter and things like that. You have to do that. You have to be a take artist to
Mm,
stand out. I mean, we're seeing that with RJ Young. We're seeing it. I mean, Mr. Ohio, who's a Ohio State account with 20,000 followers or something like that, he put up a tweet. I think it was today, and it was um, like I'm calling on all Ohio State fans to block RJ Young. It was like I was like, good lord.
wow.
But and people were in the bottom. They're like, he's a take artist. You have to have crazy takes to get noticed these days. Like you have to stand out. I mean, you don't have to, but it's a way to
The way,
stand out. This is with crazy
the way,
takes,
quick
and some
way.
people just use it. And so
Yeah,
people are like, I mean, they make all these bold statements. I mean, we're still waiting for people to pay bets about lost games and Washington fan to eat some feces and all this. It's people on Twitter, man. They run their mouth, especially with Sark this year, man. Most of my takes have to do with Sark and about
right.
how I mean they're getting super Aggie-ish when it comes to Sark because it's a situation where like when Sumlin and Fisher were compared the other day on Twitter because they both had the same record through the same amount of games and they both had the same amount of bowl wins. Somebody goes, "Well, Sumlin beat Alabama," and somebody else goes, "Well, Jimbo Fisher has a national title ring." It was like that he won at Florida State. He hasn't beaten Alabama, and he hasn't done anything at Texas A&M, and he's got a worse record because that was before the Mississippi State game. An
Yeah,
interesting stat um, with the Mississippi State win. Um, with the Mississippi State win the other night, the road team, the Power Five road teams are 41-40 at Kyle Field in the last 20 years. So Texas A&M has a losing record the last 20 years at home to Power Five teams. They are 1-47 against FCS, G5, and HBCUs. They come in. They pay all of them to come in. So they bought 47 wins and they bought one loss. But to have such a wild home field advantage, allegedly,
yeah,
it's a great atmosphere. But I mean, if you're on the field, it's almost like they're singing to you. They're doing their yells and everything like that, and it's almost a performance.
yeah,
Like LSU, you're afraid you're not going to make it out alive.
yeah,
Like that's different.
yeah,
So, but I had an A&M fan arguing with me about tradition. At least it's about the journey and how you get there. We would rather have our traditions than a lot of these trophy cases and all this. I'm like, dog, no, you wouldn't. You know how I know you wouldn't? You made Jimbo Fisher a fake national title plaque. That's how I know that you wouldn't trade it. Like there's proof. You
yeah,
guys made him a plaque, and then you gave him a raise up to $9 million a year, and then he loses at home to unranked Mississippi State.
yeah.
So, but I've dealt with more. I tweeted out that video about Kyle Field and Kirk Herbstreit and all those guys,
Right. I saw that.
and so I've been dealing with honestly I've been dealing with more delusional Aggies this last
Right.
week than I've been dealing
That's
with
just
Texas fans. But
it's a given, to be honest. I mean, Texas fans can be delusional, but at least they have some reason, kind of, for that delusion. A&M fans
yeah,
have
you
not
can
nothing.
you can at least like okay you can work out you can do the mental gymnastics it takes to work out how a Texas fan would say what they're saying for
Yeah,
the most part.
for the most part.
But for somebody to say, "Oh, we'd rather have these traditions," it was funny. He goes, "If we were 0-11 at Texas A&M, our fans would still show up at Kyle Field." I'm like, "Yeah, because y'all lose a lot.
Yeah,
Like
traditions.
because like
Little
that would
club. You
he
guys have
said that wouldn't
uh,
happen. Nobody would show up if it was in Tuscaloosa or Columbus." I said, "Because because Tuscaloosa and Columbus don't have 0-11 teams. That's the point.
facts.
Like they have high expectations. So if you continue to lose all the time." And that's when he said, "Oh well, we're 88 and let's see, that'd be 88 and 20 or whatever those numbers, 88 and 41 or whatever it was over the last 20 years, whatever that stat was. I just said, just do the numbers." It was like, okay, cool. He's like, "I wouldn't deem that losing," and I was like, "Well, you do have a losing record at home to P5 schools. So
Bad.
I'm like, dog, I can't imagine. We lose one game, and it's like
We don't
we're
even
burning
lose
the
a
place.
game.
We win games. We win games, and we're burning the place down. Like what? We win games,
My
but
God.
it's not to our liking.
Yeah.
And that's what I keep telling people. I'm like, we can win every game by 3. I do not care. You go back and look at our national title team. We were blowing everybody out in 2000. We were not. I mean, go back and look at the scores. We were not blowing everybody out. It wasn't just this high flying this that. We just grinded out wins. We grinded out wins, and we grinded out wins. Everybody wants to see, instead of a 13-16 win, they want to see a 51-48 win. Why? It's more exciting.
Yeah.
One thing that I've kind of tried to train myself to watch defensive football all of a sudden after it's been so long. But one of the things that's cool about the low scoring games is every single play matters. Like
Yep.
it matters.
It matters.
If you blow coverage and your guy scores, that might lose the game. If you blow coverage in 2017 against OU, who cares?
We're just
Who
going to
cares?
school
You're
again.
going to score anyways. So that's the thing. You miss a tackle, you blow a coverage, there's a 15-yard penalty. All that. It's super consequential. Every single play is consequential. Whereas with the high scoring, it's like, yeah, you have to keep scoring, but you got to stop here, stop there, but you're going to score a lot, so you'll get those opportunities back.
Yeah.
But man, if you drive down and you've got to make a decision, on 4th and 3 from the 40-yard line, the opponent's 40-yard line, you're like, man, this is a big play because this could decide the game. It could be the third quarter, but if it's in a defensive battle, that could decide the game, and
Yeah.
that's something OU fans haven't had to deal with in a long time. So I think it's fascinating. I mean, you're on pins and needles every single play, as opposed to you go and you miss a couple plays by going to the concessions, or you get up and grab a beer from the fridge and miss a play, or you take a phone call or whatever, and it doesn't matter because we just scored again. And
Yeah.
but we gave up another score. They scored again. Okay, we scored again. Like it seems less consequential to me.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah. So we'll just have to see how it goes. And I think that this weekend's going to be. It could be. I don't think it's going to be a defensive struggle, but you never know. With
We keep saying that. I know.
you never know. It could be. Could definitely be. Is Sark going to try to prove his point in his first year and not
You see
knowing how the game
Danny
goes?
Stutman's back.
Is he back?
He's back for Texas. His dad just tweeted out.
Amazing.
His dad Steve just tweeted out. Guess who's back? Back again. The Eminem music video.
I love
I'm like,
that.
dude, that is huge, and that's going to be so big for the team. I mean,
Yeah.
the team absolutely loves that cat, and all the fans do too. But the team just gets it. Like I said, when I had dinner with one of the players after, what game was it? Western Carolina.
Yeah.
Had dinner with him, and I asked, what's the if you had to pick a player on both sides of the like across the whole roster, no matter freshman, whatever, who's the highest current draft pick on the team? And it didn't even. He said Danny Stutzman. He said it's just Danny Stutzman's the top draft pick on the team, and I was like, what?
That's nuts.
Man, I'm like, you think out Spencer, Caleb,
Yeah.
like Nito,
Nito.
like
Yeah.
it like I don't know any of those guys, and you're like, really? Like Danny Stutzman. All right, cool. Like that's fantastic. Like I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
But it was just so what the team thinks of that guy. He's gonna be flying around.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy like that gets up for a game like this.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain guys that just live for this rivalry stuff and live for the half and half stadium and live for the tradition, all that. And I think Danny's one of those guys that's going to take one look around and then he's going to have blinders on and go, okay, let me go hit somebody wearing orange.
Yeah. And the good thing is, I think we've been through so much adversity already this year with the games that we've been in. Obviously rivalry games are different, but at the same time, you have to realize that rivalry games are often different because of that reason. Like they're not what you expect, and you have to be willing to handle some adversity. Spencer's been through it in that game last year he was benched halfway through. I mean, and he came back out firing, so he's already been
Yeah,
through that
he won the
game
game. I mean,
as well. And so to be able to lead his team, and obviously Riley's been through a couple, and this is Sark's first one. Not saying that doesn't mean he's not gonna perform well or have his team ready, but again, you just never know what's gonna happen. Hopefully,
well, the little things. I mean, the little things of navigating the locker room,
yeah,
understanding what the bus ride in's like, um, all that little stuff. It's what the crowd's like, what the half and half's like. Is it going to be loud down here? Okay, now the crowd separated into end zone and end zone, so it's not a situation where it's like a home side and away side. It's end zone and end zone. So it's like it's split at the 50 instead of the north and south end zone or
yeah,
wherever you're lined. So it's like, how loud is it going to be in that end zone when I've got a whole half of the stadium, and there's not a single fan cheering from me for 40 yards the other way. So that's the thing. Like, those are things you can't replicate. Like, you can't replicate your game day activity at a rivalry. You can't replicate any of that. So
yeah,
that kind of stuff goes into it too. But yeah, it's I just can't wait.
yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time. My sister's going, so she'll be there, and I know she's looking forward to it. Hey, let's get to the score predictions, and then we'll get to a Q&A session. See if we can get out of here a little bit earlier than we have the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're trying to stick these to hour shows, guys.
We're trying.
I know we've gone to hour and a half, but when you talk about OU football all the time, you tend to keep talking about it. So,
It's smooth like
and
butter.
then we'll spend 3 minutes talking about recruiting too. So
Yeah.
let's do score predictions on Texas.
And we got some questions in here about recruiting too, so that'd be good.
Oh, okay, cool. We'll just do it in the Q&A session then.
Yeah. All right. Trav, what's your score prediction for this weekend?
Oh man,
I'll put some up too that we get in the chat. You guys put your score predictions in the chat too. I'll just put them up here.
yeah. I mean, I told somebody today that I thought we win by 2 touchdowns, which is crazy given how the rest of the year's gone. But I don't think we give up 24. I think let's go with 31-17. Good guys. 31-17.
Should have been the final score last year. If you guys
Should have
remember
been.
the game, should have been the final score. So we let them score 2 touchdowns in 5 minutes. But hey, 31-17 for Trav. 31-17. Okay. Yeah. I think.
Pretty close to Richards.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 35-31 OU.
Wow, another heart attack, man.
35.
I
30.
mean, I'm mainly picking mine as a hope that I don't have to have a heart attack in the stadium and them having to rush me out.
Man, I was
I hope
at
I
a
don't have heat stroke in the stadium. If you are going to the game, drink water. Drink lots
yeah,
of water. Don't
yeah,
just wax cup beer at 9 a.m. and think you're back in college going, man, it's so good to be back in a full fair, all this stuff, and then it's 95 degrees and you're baking and then you have heat stroke. That's gonna ruin your day. It's gonna ruin your weekend. So drink water.
yeah.
If OU keeps Texas under 100, I'm sure you mean rushing yards. I'm betting that we'll keep them under 100 points. 31-20 OU. Interesting. That's a big swing. You're giving a lot of credit to that round. That's an 18-point swing just for some little measly old rushing yards. But I'll tell you what, it's as long as we don't have more penalty yards than their rushing yards, I think we might be in good shape.
And that's the thing too. I'm not sure what Texas's penalties have been this year, but Sark coming from Bama, learning probably what he did under Saban. I know he's probably getting that mentality, and so you got to think they're not going to be as riled up as OU typically is. Not in a bad way, obviously. Like you said, OU's just been penalized for whatever reason more under Riley. But then again, because it's their first time, some of them, and it's Sark's first time, and maybe he thinks, hey, this is just another game. Let's go into it like
Yeah,
that.
and I don't and I don't worry as much about like I worry more about like procedural penalties and things like that, pre-snap
Yeah,
stuff. illegal formations and all this, 12 men on the field, and illegal ship or whatever. Like those are the ones that frustrate me. It's not, holding. Okay, you're trying to do something, you just did it wrong. Like if we get something where it's a unnecessary roughness or something like that, as long as it's not stupid.
Yeah.
This game's gonna have an edge to it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same story every year. These kids played against each other growing up. Each team is, especially the guys like Latrell McCutcheon. He's one to watch. He hates Texas. I mean, hates Texas. He said on I forget whose show it was on, but he said that Texas can take their offer back.
Yep.
He's from Austin. He played in Austin, and
Yep.
he said yeah, a lot of us Austin guys, we don't really mess with Texas like that. Like, we're not about it. Like, we don't. They feel like they could just like offer us and we'd commit right away because we live in Austin. He's like, they can take their offer back for all I'm concerned. I was like, wow, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's gonna be a fun one, man. It is. And everybody's expecting offensive fireworks, but I wouldn't be surprised if the scores stand or probably combined under 80. I mean, people may
Yeah,
people may expect it to be over 80, but I wouldn't be surprised if it to be under that.
yeah.
So, all right, Q&A time, guys. Go ahead if you got any questions. Go ahead and put them down in the chat, and we will answer them. One, Trav, we already talked about. We're going to be recruiting for a little bit. I have one. Somebody asked. Yes, here we go. Weston asked, where do you think Gabe, Dindy, and Gentry Williams land? Gabe Dindy is committing on October 12th, and I believe Williams is committing on the 18th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, he is. I'll be at Gentry's commitment on the 18th.
Yes,
That
sir.
tells you anything.
Down kid for Trav.
It's yeah. So I feel good about Gentry, like really good. With Gabe, I still think he lands at OU. I don't like that his family's going to be in A&M. I mean, good for his family with that job and whatnot. It's just anytime, if you were just to say any recruit, say, hey, this guy's family lives in the city where a college is, and he's a big family guy, big faith guy, all this, and that's just such a big. And he got the last visit. I mean, he took it unofficial as his last visit there. He flipped him, so he took unofficial to us in June. He took an official to them in June. Then he took his official to us, and then followed it with an unofficial to them. So it was kind of interesting how he flipped those. I mean, we've been his top schools for a long time, but I still think we get him. I wouldn't be full blown shocked if he went to A&M, but I would be very surprised if he went to A&M.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, it's one of those things you always wonder how much current play affects recruits. So he was on hand to watch the Mississippi State home loss. And you always think about that. It's like, but it was a great environment. It was loud. It was this, that, and the other. It always is, though. But then again, they've got a losing record at home for the last 20 years against P5 schools. So, it's always going to be loud, but are you going to win? Are people just going to be cheering for you while you lose? Because that doesn't sound very attractive.
Right.
So I think they both end up at OU.
That's big time, man. And I know, people are freaking out, not freaking out, I'll say, but, other people are like, man, what's going on in 2022? Obviously,
I think that would put us at, I think the numbers currently, that would put us at like number 6 or 7 overall.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's not counting if we get Chris McClellan.
Yeah.
And Javante Barnes, who seems to be an OU lean, has been for a while. That doesn't count any other offensive linemen, whether it's Malik, whether it's Devin Campbell, whether it's Tim Dewberry, whether it, that's not counting Marvin Jones Jr., any of those guys. I mean, there is a mathematical scenario where we finish with a top 5 class. And everybody's still going, well, and part of it is because we just got off to such a hot start, like a historically hot start in 2023, that people are like, "Well, I guess Lincoln's done recruiting 2022." No,
Yeah,
man, dude, just some of these bigger targets, they wait.
they'll say, "I promise you, he's not."
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's see. There's another question here. Would Dindy Moore and McClellan be the best defensive line class ever? Chance hit Marvin Jones Jr. Crazy too.
oh man,
I don't know about
I mean,
ever. May in OU history ever, or like ever in college football
I think it
history?
would be. I think he's asking. I think he's asking OU.
Okay.
I think he's asking, but I mean, man, it's good. I mean, you look at some of the Clemson classes people have had recently, but speaking specifically to OU, you, you don't know because you don't know what they'll pan out to be.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school, whatever. But dude, McClellan's every bit of a top 50 player in the country, in my opinion. His size, man, he's big. He's 295. He's a Perrion Winfrey sized guy. And that's what one of the OU staffers told me. He said, we're just a couple of Perrion Winfreys away from being like a dominant defense. Well, that's what McClellan is. He's another, and Dindy's big too. I mean, you're starting to get some of those bigger defensive linemen. Moore is outrageous. I got to watch his high school game on ESPN2 the other night. Just disruptive, just against De La Salle. Him and number 6, a guy that plays with him, just crazy productive. And that's what it's just production every play. Marvin Jones Jr., I mean, that new On3 site that Hayes Fawcett went to work for, they've got him as the number 1 player in the class. I mean, I if I had to nuts on the table right now, I would say we get Marvin Jones Jr. Like there's just something about it. I just don't think that, I think FSU is just in such shambles
They
that
really
it would be just silly, I feel like, to go to them just knowing that there's 100% uncertainty ahead of you. 100% uncertainty. You don't know who's going to be coaching your kid. You don't know, I mean, what's the roster going to look like? Who's still going to be there? If they fire the coach, who transfers? Like, you don't know any of it. And when you're making this big decision, I know his dad went there and he was incredible there. Has quite the legacy there at Florida State. But man, that would just be terrifying to enter into a situation where it's guaranteed to be unreliable. And that's why I think Marvin ends up with us. God, I hope I didn't jinx it or anything. But yeah, it's the defensive line class would be
nuts.
The best that OU has had in quite some time.
Yeah.
Like quite some time. It would easily be the best in the last since 2010 when Rivals when Wilfong and all that, when that got started. So
yeah, that's for sure. Keep asking questions, guys. We'll probably be on here for another 5 minutes, I'll say. So any other questions, whether it can be about anything, man, whether it's about OU football, about the games this weekend, about Trav's restaurants, whatever.
I don't see a Chris McClellan decision taking much time once Gentry makes his decision.
Yeah,
I know they're good friends.
I can't see Gentry going anywhere else, man. I can't see him going anywhere else but OU.
I can't either. But
at this point,
then the next is and Gentry's a guy that everybody loves. I mean, he's super nice guy. Like, just he's got that personality. He's always got a smile on his face. Like, he's just a fun dude. So I think he will be a valuable recruiter for us, especially with Mr. Micah Tease. That dude is a beast. I mean, that dude is incredible. I wouldn't be shocked to see him be ranked up around where Gentry is in the 2022 class, but of course for the 2023 class, I would not be surprised to see him reach that lower 5-star. Different recruiting services, obviously, but I wouldn't be shocked to find him in 4-star or like high 4-star status, like, very quickly.
Yeah,
he's fantastic, and I know Gentry and him are close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a reason to think they wouldn't show up. I mean, I think Sark is proven enough as a play caller. Now, again, play calling only gets you so far, right? I mean, you can dial up the plays, but if they're not executed, then what are you going to have? I mean, that's what I've been trying to tell people about Lincoln for years. When people got mad that there would be third quarter stalls or whatever else, especially last year. Like some of that, sure, you can say, man, did Lincoln make the best play call? Maybe not. The other of those is like, man, if this offensive lineman makes this block, or
Yeah.
if this,
Or the wide receivers or the running backs make a
yeah,
block. You know, we run a lot of stuff to the outside.
if
So
they run the correct route, if the correct ball is thrown, right, like whatever. It's not always on the play call. It's got to be on the players too. So like play calling wise, I think Sark will probably be up to snuff. Even as this is a big game, I don't think he's gonna flop necessarily. But I think the pressure of what is the Red River shootout, will it get to some of the players? The offensive line isn't great. They're okay. They're not as bad as I thought they would be, but they're certainly still not very good. Neither was Kansas State's offensive line, and they perform well against our defensive line. And so, obviously, you like to hope that we get pressure on Casey. And I think if we get pressure on Casey, it'll be a long day. But if we just allow him to sit back there, then I don't know.
yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a situation where the play calling is going to be fine. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for Sark by any means, but it's I think it comes down to it. We have to dictate whether their offense shows up.
Yeah,
It's not a situation of do Texas football players all of a sudden not know how to run, block, pass. It's will our defense make them uncomfortable enough to get out of their rhythm, to get off script? What do they look like when they get off script?
yeah,
And I think, like I said, it's just year after year, our defensive line and linebackers, they seem to play really well in this game.
I think
Even when our defense was bad, like even when we had a defense ranked in the hundreds,
they showed up.
our defense still seemed to get a bunch of sacks
Yeah,
or still get to make big plays and things like that. So I think it's up to the OU defense to dictate whether the Texas offense shows up per se.
yeah, I agree. And, I completely agree. I think they'll show up too. I think defense want to show up. I think Nick Benito will have a big day. Their left tackle is not. He's not good with speed rushers, and I think Nick can expose that a lot for sure. And their interior is okay as well, but it's going to be tough to hold off Perrion, even Josh Ellison. Obviously, you hate to lose a Jalen Redmond, but Josh Ellison's he's no snuff at all. Neither is
Yeah.
Jordan Kelly. And any number of people you're going to put in there. I mean, we're we
Corey Roberson's been playing well too, as well as
we're,
Isaiah Coe. We're just so deep on there.
we're just deep, and that's the thing too. That's why you don't like to see games like Kansas State. But again, put that in the washer, dry it off. We'll be ready for this weekend. I truly believe that. It's another one. Got a couple more coming. Can you see Raleek Brown becoming an OU version of Tavon Austin? As much as Raleek Brown could become an OU version of Tavon Austin, I think we already got somebody on the roster that could be like that, a la Mario Williams, if we give him the ball eventually.
Raleek can be anything we want him to be. I
Yeah,
mean, that dude, he's just different. But yeah, I could see him putting up absolute video game numbers as long as we get the proper blocking, as long as we get the proper, it's going to be almost similar to how we treat Billy Bowman,
yeah,
how the coaches were basically fighting over him to say, no, I want him. And then Lincoln, it was basically like, we just need to get him on the field.
yeah,
Whatever it takes to get this guy on the field, get him on the field.
yeah.
It's going to be a sense like that with
Simmons and Murray.
with Raleek. It's like we just need to get him on the field. We need to get the ball in his hand. And Mario, you bring up a great point. Mario's the same way. That dude makes stuff happen.
We gotta get
So
the hands, man.
it's, I mean, he had a step. Spencer had that weird underthrown ball down the right sideline. He was burning that corner
Yeah,
from Kansas State last week, and he knew it, man. When that ball got unthrown, he was so upset. But I mean, he's got absolute jets. But Raleek, this next class is so fast. Is so fast. I mean, Gentry's got Olympic speed. He stopped running track to focus more on football, but he's got Olympic speed. I mean, Raleek's got runs like a 4.3. Like they're just you see Raleek in the Matter Day clips. I mean, the dude, if he sees space, and Matter Day doesn't play these slouches. This is not watching Arch Manning tape. Arch Manning has 90 people per class, and it's $27,000 to go to school there, and he's playing in what looks like backyards.
2A,
So
Louisiana.
this isn't 2A in Louisiana. So this is not a situation where Raleek is just blowing by these guys because they're bums. Like, they're going to Duncanville.
Yeah.
Duncanville, of course, who you know from Omario Bohr. And they wiped the floor with Duncanville. I mean, they blew them out. They embarrassed them. They came to Texas and did it. And that's the thing. They're playing good teams, and they're still embarrassing them, in part because Raleek Brown has been that good. I mean, he scored big run after big run, big catch all this year. The kid's just different.
He is different, and it's gonna be. I mean, it's fun to see all the talent that we're just gonna have, and that we already have. I mean, obviously we talk about Mario Williams, but just almost all of our wide receivers when they get the ball in their hand. Marvin Mims, like he may not be as shifty, but he's a slighter shifty. You got Jaden Hazelwood. He's still that can. I mean, he's just
mean and strong and
CeeDee Lamb.
Got the attitude.
You got Mike Woods, who just like I don't know if we've had a receiver in years that is like Mike Woods, that is as big as he is, as tall as he is, as fast as he is, but also like we haven't seen a ton of them because he hasn't got the ball in his hands a lot. And that's not, I'm not blaming anybody for that, whatever. But when you see it, man, like that's the thing. And that's why it's like Josh Pate was talking about. I was watching the video today. He said, Texas has already had that game where, they scored 70 on Texas Tech. And obviously OU scored 76 on Western Carolina, but it's not Power 5 team. So, it's FCS school, whatever, that's going to happen. But he was like, they've had this, they had the 16 points against West Virginia, 23 against Nebraska. And obviously even Kansas State, they didn't explode completely, but they still had 37. He's like, OU hasn't had that yet. And that's why, like, this game is tough. Is this going to be their one? That's why people are scared to bet on Texas. And I'm like, and that's why, though, because of all the talent, we have too much talent not to eventually click, dog. Like it's nuts. It's nuts. And if you watch the game,
I keep going back to the wide receiver thing, man. It's weird. We have so much wide receiver talent. We don't have an obvious one and an obvious two that can battle for targets, and then everybody else kind of come through for depth, and I think that's problematic for a flow. But what do you do about it? Do you get less talented players? And what do you do in 2023? Do you get rid of 5 stars?
They'll figure it out. I mean, Sark had to figure it out with Waddle and Judy and
Devonta Smith. Yeah.
Smith. I mean, that I'm not saying all of our guys are going to be as good as they were or
first round picks
like they were, but I mean they have the talent to be, and so like it's a good problem to have, right?
It's a good problem to have, no doubt.
It's going to create matchup nightmares, which is what you hope. And I think they're all for each other. We just haven't hit on explosive plays. Once we hit on explosive plays, I think everybody's going to be excited. Like, Jaden Hazel's going to be the first one over celebrating with Mario Williams when he catches a 60-yard bomb finally, whenever that happens,
Or when he springs them on a block.
Yes, man. I love when receivers block like that. I remember CeeDee Lamb blocked like that, I think, against
Alabama.
It was Bama, but he also had one. I don't know if it was Iowa State, Kyler Murray's year, where he hit 2 dudes, and Kyler went up the sideline. I don't remember which game that was, but Jade Hazelwood had the type of block for Jeremiah Hall on Saturday. It was just you love to awesome like that. All right, let's hit one more question, then we'll be out of here. Let me see if I can find a good one. Okay. Do you see Marcus Major transferring, given what is coming in, especially if we get Barnes?
Man, I just don't. What's weird with this is like
Eric Gray has another year.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I just think it's weird that, like, and I know I could probably find out more details on it, or read up on it, but with Marcus Major, he's got to transfer, I feel like. I mean, it wasn't even a situation where your grades suck, get your grades up, and then you'll play. Like, this isn't like an academic, like, suspension probation thing. Like, you're off the team. Like, how bad do your grades have to be
Dog.
to get kicked off the team? Like, that's where I feel like it's like, dog, transfer. Like, or just try and get your grades up and focus on school or something. Like, that's my concern
Yeah.
is we've had kids that were academically ineligible over the years. You know, they didn't play a game and then they got their grades up or whatever, or it was an issue and they took care of it and got their grades up. But for this to happen preseason or before the year and just be like, what on earth could have you been doing
Yeah.
that the team deemed it better to get rid of you than it was to try and bring your grades up? Like, why would that be an option? So I think even with the running back room as it stands, we're going to take 3 running backs in this class and they will get playing time. They'll absolutely get playing time. Gavin Sawchuk is ready to play today.
Yeah.
Gavin Sawchuk's ready to play right now.
Javante.
Relig's ready to play right now.
Do you think Kennedy and Eric will come back, both of them?
Eric, yeah, I'm not sure about Kennedy.
Yeah. You think Kennedy will try his luck?
I'd have to look at Kennedy's eligibility. Is he a junior?
Somebody said in the chat he has one more year.
If he has one more, it depends. I'm sure, like everybody, they'll look at their draft grade.
Yeah.
See what they get.
Yeah.
I hope he comes back. That'd be a lot of fun because it'll be more of a power run scheme with what we'll run. Next year's offense will look a lot like what our 2019 offense looked like with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
But it'll just be with Caleb Williams. So Caleb Williams and, hopefully a whole bevy of wide receivers. Our defense is going to look odd next year with a bunch of guys going to the NFL. But
I don't even know. I don't even know who of the wide receiver crew would leave. I think most of them would probably come back. I think Woods would have to leave, right? This is
I think he just has the 1 year.
But I could see Jaden come back. Marvin has to come back. Obviously, Theo's probably going to come back because of his injury.
Yeah.
Who else? Mario obviously will still be there. He still got Cody.
Yeah, you got Jaleel Farouk, Cody Jackson.
They're still going to be there.
There's so many.
Yeah, which is why I don't think you're worried about losing guys like Hudson and Cetron and although obviously you wanted them. Not saying
you always want them, but man, that 2023 class. If we had to sacrifice some 2022 guys to get this 2023 class, because we're really going to see a reset in a lot of the defensive players and whatnot after this year, right? Because we're just going to have a lot of them go to the NFL.
Yeah.
But man, that 2023 class has a chance to be number one. We could put together back-to-back top 5 classes with one of them being number one. Man, that's the start of something special going into the SEC. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
I agree.
All right, we're at risk of going over an hour and a half again. So
it already happened. Hey guys, we appreciate y'all. Thanks for coming in. We'll be back here again next Wednesday, 9
thanks
p.m.
everybody.
Time. Make sure y'all look for it. Hey, hopefully we'll be talking about a Sooners W at the Red River Shootout on Saturday. Trav's gonna be at the game, right? You going?
Of course.
And I will be at my cross country course with my phone in my hand, watching the game, hoping for a dub.
There you go.
So, hey, appreciate you, Trav.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me as always. Looking forward to next week.
Of course, it'll be fun, guys. We appreciate you. Thanks for being in the chat. Remember, keep spreading the word about it. Good show tonight again. We want to get up we've been in the 20s the last couple of weeks. Let's try to get that up to the 40s next week, maybe even 50. I know obviously a little late, but we know you each know 5 or 10 people that need some Sooner football on a Wednesday night in the middle of the week. So just let them know. We're out here.
Yeah, midweek. Everybody's got level heads at this point.
Absolutely.
And maybe a couple of some cocktails. Who knows?
Yeah. Hey, it is it's 11:21 Eastern Standard Time, 10:21 Central Standard Time, and Texas still sucks.
Texas still sucks.
They do.
See you guys.
They're gonna suck. All right. Bye, y'all.